This is the Veterinary Project Podcast, episode 116.
Welcome to the show created by vets featuring absolutely no pets. This is the Veterinary Project Podcast, hosted by Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht. Our resident veterinarians have swapped out their stethoscopes in favor of microphones to bring you the Veterinary Project Podcast, a show focused on real conversations, aimed to connect this amazing profession full of remarkable people. Through the sharing of collective stories and wisdom, and connecting over the many unique challenges we face, we invite you to join our community of veterinary professionals leading intentional lives. And now, here are the hosts of the Veterinary Project Podcast, Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Another episode of the Veterinary Project Podcast. Very different episode format for you today. It is just me behind the microphone. No Jonathan, no guest. Jonathan away on vacation, and I believe the saying is, when the cat is away, the mice will play. So I am taking this opportunity, to jump behind here and have a one-on-one chat with all of you listeners. A few things that have sort of triggered this episode that are front of mind for me and have been front of mind in a few conversations I've had recently, and I think it's worthwhile sharing with everyone. So three sort of themes I'm going to touch on: dropping the ball, casting a vote, and then investing. And we will see here, I have some talking points prepared, but I am shooting this sort of live in one take. So the investment piece could turn into a rant. So we will see on that. And 1 and 2 tie together. So let's dive right in here. Topic number 1, dropping the ball. So what has sort of inspired this topic is just what's going on in life right now in general, me, Jonathan, the podcast, and then everything else. So you've probably noticed that the last handful of episodes have been just Jonathan and I, and our typical cadence is we bring on a guest, then me and Jonathan do an episode, then we bring on a guest and kind of back and forth with that. And where we found ourselves was basically a situation where we have tons on our plate. Jonathan transitioning CFO to CEO. I just had a new baby boy born, so our kind of family life is a bit chaotic right now. And we've been trying to schedule guests. That is very challenging because all of our guests are also have very full schedules. We've had some fall through, some reschedule. So anyway, all of that is to say, Jonathan and I found ourselves in a situation where we were looking ahead and we were like, wow, we are in a really tight spot here. We have so much on the go. We're cramming these episodes in, and we sat down and we just blocked, I think it was like 3 or 4 recording times. Now this is back sometime in October. And we said, this is all we can do. This is all we have capacity for right now at this stage of life, at the tail end of 2022 for this podcast. And so on these days we are recording, and if we can get a guest, great. And if we can't get a guest, Jonathan and I are hitting record and we're recording an episode. And we just said that is what it's going to have to be. And that sort of brought up the concept of dropping the ball. And I had a recent conversation with another veterinarian, and they kind of shared with me, how overwhelmed they were feeling. They had so much on their plate, so many different obligations, and they're trying so hard not to let any of those drop. And we had a really interesting conversation about, well, maybe it's okay to just let a few of those drop temporarily. So assess your priorities. This is me personally speaking. It's going to be, family and health. And then obviously you have to prioritize whatever is putting groceries on the table for you and your family. So some sort of income generation, right? So it's very reasonable. Those things are going to rise to the top and other things are going to fall by the wayside. And so when we looked at this with Jonathan, we got to the point where we said, okay, we may miss an episode. And we're cool with that. It's not ideal. And then we sat there and we're like, well, what can we do about that? And I said, you know what? If we're at the point where, we have no guests lined up and we've ran out of like time slots, I was like, I'll jump on and I'll shoot a solo episode, right? And so this is tying into number 2, which I call casting a vote. And so what I mean by casting a vote is sometimes in life, you have your sort of ideal thing that you would like to do. You've mapped it out. This is how I would like things to go. Things get in the way. All of that kind of blows up, but you still have the chance where you can cast a small vote in that direction. So what I mean by that is, for me right now, I've been training a lot for running 10Ks. I've got ball hockey coming up, and I had a really solid November training plan. And in my head, I thought, hey, I know we're having a new baby in late October, but I still think I can carve out this amount of time and stick to my training plan. And that has gone absolutely nothing like what I thought it would. The only anchor I have is on Wednesday afternoon. I still go in and I see my personal trainer for 1 hour, one time a week. And I showed up there, and he kind of assesses me. And he's like, hey, how is the body feeling? And I'm like, well, to be completely honest, it's feeling terrible. Like very little sleep. I've done nothing. I've done none of the prescribed workouts and training that you've suggested. And to be honest, we're not eating all that well. And he said, okay, well, there's really no point in me, putting you through the ringer here because your body's just not going to be able to recover. And I said to him, honestly, I don't care what we do. I'm just happy to be out of the house, not changing a diaper. So basically we stretched and did a very, very light workout, but that's still casting a vote in my opinion. This is how I'm viewing it is I'm still showing up for that 1 hour, to keep the identity of, okay, I am someone that is committed to this health garden. Now for you in your life, that can be whatever, right? That's just one example in my personal life. Back to the podcast, the casting a vote, doing a solo episode is not what we had planned, but it still casts a vote that we produce a weekly podcast for the veterinary community, right? In your personal life, maybe that is time with your partner, and you had a date night planned and things come up and it doesn't go as planned. And you can say, you know what, let's still just take 5 minutes and connect, right? Not ideal, not what you had planned, but you're still casting a vote that relationship is a priority for you. So, and then this tangent, this is my ego kicking in. We actually do have an episode that I could be releasing right now with a guest that kind of came through last minute. So we do have that, but I was still like, no, I still think this solo episode is valuable to slide in. So that's kind of a piece of what's going on, in my life and in some of the conversations that I've had recently around dropping the ball and casting a vote. And I feel that like in the veterinary community, and especially coming up to the end of the year, I feel like the holiday season lands differently for everyone. And it always feels like the schedule just ratchets up. Like there's events all over, like weekday, weekend, and I feel like be gentle on yourself, right? It is fine to not attend all of them, figure out which ones are the priority, and focus on those. So anyway, moving into topic number 3, which we'll see how this goes, is investing. And this is a topic near and dear to my heart. And I literally could launch hours and hours of podcast episodes on this, but I just wanted to share some stuff because what I am seeing right now is very similar to when I graduated as a veterinarian. So I graduated in 2008. And for any of you that have investments or are following, the stock market, the bond market, the crypto market, the real estate market, 2022 has not been a good year. Things are going down. They're going down fairly sharply. And no one knows where we're headed. The big R word, recession, is being thrown around a lot. And this may leak over into 2023. Who knows? So the point of this episode is I just wanted to touch on some of the things that I've seen, that I've experienced, that's worked for me, that don't work for me. So the first thing I wanted to say is getting a handle on, how you behave at the extremes. So most of the time, day-to-day life, we're going to work as a veterinarian, you're earning an income, you're budgeting, you're saving a portion, you have an emergency fund, and just things are ticking along, and that's excellent. But how you behave at the extremes can have a really large impact on your overall, personal finances. So when things are going just gangbusters, avoiding that FOMO, that fear of missing out. And then when things are going not so good, trying not to get sucked into that fear, right? So fear and greed often can drive the tail ends of the bell curve here. So as veterinarians, I would say, in my opinion, we are just so fortunate because we are in a very recession resistant industry. I'm not going to say it's recession proof. I think as our clients feel the pinch at home, they will pull back, and you may be experiencing a bit of a slowdown, but things have just been going, so hot that for a lot of us, a slowdown is probably welcome. But we are very fortunate in that, we can basically choose to not negatively participate in a recession. And when you look at, some other industries, other companies, we're seeing layoffs, by the thousands across the board, and that can be really scary. And so we are fortunate in that we can kind of just, stick to our own plan, keep showing up, keep serving your clients and your pets, and doing what we do, kind of in a bubble, so we're really fortunate in that way. And that's kudos to all of the listeners. I mean, you chose that, you put in the hard work to put yourself in this position. So, if your game plan is, and again, none of this is financial advice, consult your investment professional. But if your game plan is dollar cost averaging and you have a long-term time horizon, you have absolutely no need to be pulled into all of this fear. Just keep doing what you're doing. And in fact, I would argue and try to encourage you to look at the positive side of things. Basically, this would be no different than, your favorite pet food company and the regular bag of pet food that you buy every month for your pets approaching you and saying, hey, you buy this every month anyway, but now it's 20% on sale. Now it's 30%, 40%, 50% on sale, right? What are you going to say to that? You're going to say, yes, thank you. I might even buy more. So if you're on a long-term time horizon and you're dollar cost averaging, this is an opportunity maybe to even double down on that. I know, in our personal household, how we have things set up is we run a regular budget, and out of that budget, we have savings accounts that get funded, and we have a portion for investments, and a portion of that investments gets deployed immediately. And then some of that we will hold in like kind of cash reserves. And we're looking at situations of, okay, how can we, even trim some expenses, even if we don't need to, even if you're not feeling the pinch, every dollar you invest now counts as extra. Now, again, I've said this on a previous podcast, I don't know where the bottom is. No one knows. The stock market, the bond market, the crypto market, real estate, whatever your preferred investment is, it could still go down more, right? All we know is it is less expensive than it was at this time last year. So anyway, focus on that, focus on the fundamentals, have your emergency fund, keep saving, keep budgeting, keep that income coming in, but there is opportunity here. And we're very fortunate as veterinarians to be in a position where we can probably capitalize on that. Focus on the emotions. So I think of this as it relates to veterinarians. We spend a lot of time as a veterinary student and our early years, you're focusing on the tactics, like literally what skills do I need to do veterinary medicine, like to look at blood work, to do surgery. And then we typically layer on all those other skills later, those people skills, the emotional, like IQ, resiliency, mindfulness, those come to mind. Those are the same the same skills that we use in the veterinary clinic in difficult situations. Those same skills can be applied to our investing, right? So when you turn on the news and everything, and you have to look at it for what it is. Pick your news channel. Their job is to get your attention. So everything is screaming red and flashing and holy man, everything is falling apart. That is because they want your eyeballs. They want you to tune into that channel so that they can sell advertising, right? This is where you have to dig deep, practice mindfulness, tune all of that out, right? Because honestly, it really doesn't matter if you have your plan and you can stick to your plan. Diving in, I want to touch briefly on sort of some of these areas that you can invest. So stock market, bond market. I'm going to speak mostly to the stock market. I do have Isaiah coming back on here, and we're going to dive more into stocks and bonds. Bonds are the dog and stocks are the tail, right? The bond market is much bigger than the stock market. Most people retail people focus on the stock market. really what I want to say on the stock market is it is leading and liquid. So if you are watching it, you are going to see it move very fast. It trades like if at the time of recording yesterday, it moved up. I think it was one of the biggest days on record. And previous to that, it had just moved down one of the biggest days on record. And that's because things can buy and sell with the click of a mouse. And even further to that, it's not even the click of a mouse anymore. It's computer algorithms. Certain trigger rates get hit, everything auto sells, and you can see just these dramatic moves. And again, we don't need to focus on that. If you have a long-term time horizon, you don't need to get sucked into it. Touching on crypto, I am not a crypto expert. I just feel like I have to mention it because it raises a few points that are very important. The number one thing it raises for me is counterparty risk. And so choosing not to think about this is just choosing to be ignorant. Everything you do has counterparty risk. Even money sitting in a savings account at a bank has counterparty risk. Now, the counterparty risk is very low, but banks can go bankrupt. We have seen that before. So the risk is not zero. It is magnified in the crypto space as we have seen so many exchanges go completely bankrupt. At the time of this recording here, we just saw another like large exchange, FTX. I know very little about this other than in one day, literally in a 24-hour period, it went from having a market cap of 30-some billion to basically zero, right? So there is counterparty risk all around you. So you need to be looking at that and looking, where do you have your investments deployed? What banks are you holding your money in? Where are you holding crypto if crypto is your choice? Even real estate, who's the operator? Looking at all of that and just making a conscious choice. Do you have too much with one operator or one person or one company? Do you need to spread it around? And that's a very personal choice. But the point of this is just be aware of it. And then number two is sector risk. So very similar to counterparty, but looking at your allocations, right? How much is in real estate? How much is in stocks? Within stocks, there's all sorts of different sectors. This is very much where you need a professional, financial expert to look overall. As veterinarians, I would say one of our biggest, it's an advantage and it's also a risk is, do you have too much in the veterinary space, right? So if you are deriving all of your income from veterinary medicine and you own veterinary clinics and you have investments invested in veterinary products and veterinary companies, you are basically putting all your eggs on the veterinary sector. Now, I'm a big believer in focus, right? So if you are going to start a veterinary clinic, go in on that. Focus, make it the best veterinary clinic that you can, and you will get great returns from that. But once you reach a certain point in your life where you have that extra capital, you may want to put some of that, elsewhere, so it's not exposed to ups and downs in the veterinary sector. So the key takeaway here is just counterparty risk. And then moving into the potential rant zone of real estate investing. So this is definitely the area of investing that I know the most on. And I am definitely seeing, some things that I just wanted to share with everyone. This is one of the main reasons for this episode, is because I really just want veterinarians to do well financially. So I had mentioned that the stock market is leading and liquid. The real estate market is lagging and illiquid. So what that means is you will not see changes happen in the real estate market nearly as fast as the stock market. They say the stock market is looking forward, 6 to 12 months. The real estate market is typically looking backward. So when we have all of these interest rate changes, it takes time for that to work its way through the system. And part of the reason it takes time for that to work its way through the system is real estate is very illiquid. So remember, the stock we could trade with the click of a mouse. Real estate takes way more work than that. You have to enter into a contract. It has to get negotiated, accepted, go through the lawyers, clear title. Depending, single family homes can be quicker. The multifamily building I am currently working on, we have been working on it since the summer of 2022. And it reasonably, if it even does close, won't close until early 2023, probably like March 2023. So that is at least a 6-month process from the start to the finish. And think about how much can change in that time. So really, what I want to say to the listeners here in the real estate space is be cautious, right? Really look at that counterparty risk, because things are changing and you haven't seen it fully flush out in the real estate space yet. There are going to be operators, there already are operators that are going bankrupt. And the problem is this doesn't always hit the news, right? This is going to be very market by market in your specific area. And when you look at different types of real estate investing, lots of them are really turning down. Like I think of pre-sale construction. I mean, that is just, plummeting because so much has changed. People just can't close on what they said they were going to. Home builders are stopping further construction. Airbnb is really contracting. People are feeling the pinch, not traveling as much. If you're fixing and flipping, you're putting money into a project and you're trying to sell it and it's worth less now, right? So it's just not a strong market. That's to say all of this can still be done, with the right operator, finding the right deal, but you have to be extremely cautious. So one of the take-home messages here is extreme due diligence right now. If you are considering a real estate investment, I would want to see an operator with an extensive track record. Like, I'd probably push it even to 10 years. I always said at least 5, but I would want it to be, 5, 7, 10 years doing what they're doing, right? Not that they used to fix and flip and now they're doing multifamily for 1 year. That's not a 10-year track record in multifamily. You want that long stability, ideally of, seeing a downturn before. There's a saying by Warren Buffett that I love, and I think I said it on a previous podcast, is when the tide goes out, you see who's been swimming naked. And we are about to see who's all been swimming naked. And so I don't want you to get caught up in that. Some of the other things I see with that is as the tide is going out, some people will get desperate. And so they will start making pitches trying to raise capital. And those pitches will look very good and they'll be very cleverly marketed. And the rates of return that they will offer, and quote unquote promise will be very attractive. And this is where you have to just stay firm, right? Because that is sometimes the last grasp, of people trying to prevent bankruptcy. So extreme due diligence. On the counter side of that is I really hope I am not coming across as discouraging people, because you will see some of the best opportunities coming for investing over the next while, right? Whether that, like, some of them are even here now. Some of them are going to take 6, 12, 18 months to play out, but there will be excellent opportunities. The other piece I want to talk about, mostly with real estate, but it really applies to everything. It can be stock market, and it can be your veterinary business, is leverage. And so I'm a huge proponent. I've been on record a lot saying, debt can be good. I still stand by that, but you have to be extremely cautious in this environment as the cost of debt keeps rising. Leverage works both ways. So for the same reason that leverage applied to real estate can produce you unbelievable returns, it can also work against you. And so I'm going to go back to dentistry again with this one. I don't know why I always pick dentistry, but it seems to have the best analogies. And so I think of using an elevator to pull a tooth. And the reason that we can pull some of these teeth is with the leverage that elevator provides, right? We can put a little bit of torque with our hand and it just amplifies it. And that allows us to do our work with ease. But I'm sure if you've been in the veterinary game long enough, you've broken your fair share of teeth like I have. And so you get a little bit carried away with that elevator and you just crank on it just a tiny bit too much. It feels like nothing in your hand. And then you hear that snap of the root of the tooth. That is leverage. It is very easy to over leverage, right? And it will happen and it will come without warning. It will happen very quickly, right? And so leverage is one of those things. As much as I love it for amplifying returns, you have to scrutinize it. Like if you are looking at a real estate deal right now that has leverage, you need margin of safety. Run your interest rates higher, run your rents lower, run your vacancy higher, safety everywhere, right? Because leverage is unforgiving. So all of that being said, that was kind of my warning, I guess. I didn't rant too hard. one of the reasons for this episode also is I am seeing a lot of social media posts that are really driving me bonkers. With people that have taken other people's money and put them into poor investments, and then sort of in a cavalier manner walk away and say, "Oh, well, I didn't see this coming." And it's like, I can't stand that sort of carefree attitude, especially with other people's money. So really, I just want veterinarians to do well financially, because I really believe it is one of the cornerstones of improving this industry, is if we can all be on sound financial footing, and we can work as a veterinarian, take more rest and show up with more energy and be more involved with our clients when we are there. I do think it is one of the keys and paths forward in this profession. So if I was to sum all of that up, because I know I've said a lot on the investing piece, there's no cause for panic in the veterinary industry, right? Look for where you can make adjustments, be protected, stick to the basics, the emergency fund, the savings account, the budgeting. But if you can direct a little bit more into investing, consider that, because there are going to be opportunities, and those are going to count double. When I think back to when I started, again, very fortunate, phenomenal veterinary mentorship, but also personal life mentorship. I had no investments. My first veterinary clinic had an RRSP matching program. RRSP is the Canadian, version of a retirement account. And so, my employer said, like, everything was down. I was so lucky that I started investing at the bottom, and he basically took me by the hand and was like, "You have to do this. This is a smart financial play for you and your family." So don't let the fear consume you. There's opportunity. Look at your sector and counterparty risks. If you are considering an investment in a sector, now is the time to get up to speed so that you can be prepared. Don't chase the FOMO. Don't chase the fear of missing out. Just be prepared. And when that opportunity presents itself, you'll be ready for it. So anywho, I hope this episode provided people with some value. We will be back to regular programming here as we move into the rest of 2022 and into 2023. Hope everyone has a fantastic week.
Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Project Podcast. As a recap, on behalf of our hosts, the Veterinary Project Podcast will be releasing new episodes weekly. So be sure to tune in as we bring you more conversations aimed at helping you enjoy a life well lived. If you enjoyed what you heard on the show and you want to stay in the know, please like, love, and or subscribe to the podcast on the listening platform of your choosing, as we're available on all the usual suspects. If you know of others that may benefit from these conversations, we'd love it if you please share the show with them, as this will help us grow our community to reach more and more veterinary professionals. Speaking of which, if you are a veterinary professional and would like to get connected with more like-minded individuals who are joining us on this journey, please send an email to theveterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll invite you to be a part of our private Facebook group. General feedback, requests for information, or perhaps requests to be a guest on the show can also be sent to the Veterinary Project Podcast @gmail.com. Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht, thank you for listening to the show, and we'll catch you again next week for another episode of the Veterinary Project Podcast. Bye for now.